and welcome to the City of Purple. My name is Taki Christodoulou, and I'm one of the national tour guides here in South Africa, and we're going to take you around Pretoria to show you this wonderful city of Pretoria through the Jacaranda trees.
Through all the days that eat away at every breath that I take, through all the nights I have lain alone in someone else's dream awake, all the words in truth that were spoken that the wind has blown away. Oh, it's only you that remains with me, clear as the light of day.
A little bit about these Jacaranda trees. These trees that you see over here are not indigenous trees to this country. They come from Argentina, and the first trees were brought into South Africa around about the 1880s. And then from there they planted them in an area called Sunnyside, one of the other areas close to where we are at the moment. And from there, to beautify the city, they planted approximately 70,000 of these Jacaranda trees here in South Africa. Jacarandas originally from Argentina, and you find them widely spread in the South American area, especially around about Cuba. But they've also been planted in countries like Zimbabwe, South Africa, and also Australia. This is just one of 49 different species of Jacaranda trees that you get. And the Jacaranda trees play a very, very important part in the role of Pretoria. Some interesting facts about them. In South Africa, some legends associated with the Jacaranda trees. In South Africa, our school year starts in January, ends in December. And your main exams are in July and then in November. So if you don't start studying by the time the Jacarandas bloom, you're not going to pass your exams. That's one of the legends that are here in South Africa about the Jacaranda trees. And it's also considered good luck if a Jacaranda falls on you, and you're going to have a lot of good luck. Approximately 70,000 trees here in Pretoria, and even have a radio station called Jacaranda 94.2, which is also named after these beautiful Jacaranda trees. So let's talk a little bit about Pretoria at the moment. Pretoria, a couple of interesting facts about Pretoria. It has the second largest amount of embassies in the world outside of Washington, D.C. Only Washington, D.C. has more embassies than Pretoria. Approximately 130 of these embassies. And why? Because anybody who wanted a foothold in Africa would first come to Pretoria, establish an embassy here in Pretoria, South Africa, and then from there expand into the rest of Africa. In terms of the area, Pretoria area, it is 632 square kilometers, or about 244 square miles. It is the third largest city area in the world, outside of New York City, number one, and Tokyo Yokohama district is number two. It is South Africa's fourth largest city, approximately 2.5 million inhabitants in the greater Pretoria area. The early inhabitants in this area, it was the Sotho tribe that was the first tribe in this area. And then from there, one of Shaka Zulu's big lieutenants called Mzilikazi came here and conquered them and established a base here in Pretoria. And this area behind me over here, called Mankies Kop, is the actual area where Mzilikazi established his kraal. How it used to work in those days is that the African tribes used to battle each other, they used to go to war, they used to kill the men, but the women and children were integrated into the tribe. One of Mzilikazi's greatest enemies was the Bakwena tribe. So they tried to stay far away from each other. The first European inhabitants that arrived here in Pretoria was 1839-1840. Lucas Bronkhorst was the first one, and then followed by the followers of Andries Potgieter. They established what they call a church here in Pretoria, and every 3 months they used to have something called Nachtmaal, or Holy Communion. All the farmers in the area, everybody would get together at the church, camp out for a few days, they'd socialize and have their Holy Communion because they were very religious people, and also perhaps find a husband or a wife and get married after that. From there, Pretoria grew slowly, Church Square, into areas surrounding Church Square, being areas like Burgers Park and Sunnyside and Arcadia, and was only officially established in 1860 and called Pretoria, Philadelphia at that stage, named after one of the great leaders of the foot trackers at that point in time. From there, Pretoria grew into what it is today. In terms of the fauna and flora here in Pretoria, we have approximately 70,000 jacaranda trees here. It is a wonderful climate here. We get approximately 741 millimeters of rain a year, or 29 inches of rain. And in terms of the climate, we an average of only 18 degrees Celsius or 65 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the whole year, which makes it one of the most wonderful climates in the world to be. It's quite dry. You must remember that you are at altitude here in Pretoria. It's 1,450 meters above sea level, or 4,800 feet above sea level. In terms of the agriculture, in and around Pretoria there's intensive vegetable farming as well as your dairy farming. And that's how it works in South Africa. Outside the big cities, you have your intensive farming where they actually feed the big cities with the vegetables and some of the fruit and some of the actual dairy farming. What about Pretoria as a transport hub? It's quite an important transport hub because from here you can easily get through to Maputo in the east, which is in Mozambique, with the rail system that we have in South Africa. As well, with that same rail, you can go through to Messina in the north and then travel through to Johannesburg, then from Johannesburg, which is in the south, all the way down to Cape Town. We've also got one of our high-speed trains called the Gautrain. In South Africa, when we talk of Gautrain and high-speed trains, we mean approximately 100 miles an hour, 160 kilometers an hour. And that goes from Pretoria to Johannesburg. It is about a distance of 53 kilometers, around about 35 miles. That train is moving approximately 60,000 people a day at the moment, and it's an important part of our economy. Between Pretoria and Johannesburg, we have a highway called the Ben Schoeman Highway. That is actually the second busiest road in Africa. The busiest road being the one between Cairo and Alexandria. Every morning, there's a huge migration that goes from Pretoria through to Johannesburg, and then every afternoon they have to come back. They work in Johannesburg and come back towards Pretoria. In terms of education here in Pretoria, we have 3 universities: University of Pretoria, and then Vista University, and the biggest university in the world, called UNISA, is here in Pretoria. It has approximately 300,000 students that go to this university, but it's distance learning, or what they call online. Around about 6,400 lecturers and administrative staff that work at the University of South Africa. And besides that, there's also great schools here in Pretoria, being Pretoria Boys High School and the Girls High Schools as well. Now, Pretoria is also known for its mining, or not its mining, sorry, South Africa is known for its mining. Pretoria Not much mining in and around Pretoria. We have what they call the Silverton area, where they found a little bit of silver, but not much. In the Time Ball Hills here in Pretoria, they discovered gold, but it wasn't viable for any proper gold mining. And then in and around this area, there's something called dolomite and norite. So not much mining in and around Pretoria. But what about Pretoria as an economic and financial hub here in South Africa? Pretoria alone produces 9% of South Africa's gross domestic product. Johannesburg, our biggest city, produces 16%, and Pretoria produces 9% of the GDP. The economy is made up of 71% services, and then 23% in industry, and around about 13% commercial services. With the 130 different diplomatic missions here in Pretoria, a large portion of the economy is based around the service industry, because of the fact that you have also a lot of the government departments, being the international relations as well as your home affairs here in Pretoria. So all in all, Pretoria, South Africa's fourth biggest city, and also an important hub, one of our capitals here in South Africa, an important financial and economic hub. So welcome to the city of Pretoria. Welcome to the city of purple. During the time of President Paul Kruger's presidency back in the 1890s, they were very, very scared about the upcoming South African war. And what they did was they built 4 forts to protect Pretoria from the British. This was one of the forts that was built that you see in front of you, and it's called the Klapperkop Fort. President Paul Kruger became concerned about the safety of its capital, Pretoria, both from foreign invasion and also from the growing number of Uitlanders, or foreigners, in the Witwatersrand. You must remember, at the time, the gold fields of Johannesburg were in full flow, and people were flocking in from all over the world to seek their fortune here in Johannesburg. So this was one of the 4 forts that were built around Pretoria, and was completed in January 1898. The fort was surrounded by a moat with a drawbridge, but this moat was never filled with water because it was drawn from, or was cut out from shale, and the shale was very, very porous, so the water used to go straight through that. The cost of the fort was approximately £50,000 at the time, and was armed with long tom cannons and various other small caliber cannons. It was initially manned by 17 troops, but as the war went on, the troops were withdrawn from the fort and sent elsewhere where they were needed. So here we are now at the Klapperkop Nature Reserve. This is the nature reserve that's just on the outskirts of Pretoria, overlooking part of the Pretoria city. As you can see, as we're panning now from we're going from east to west, you'll be able to see some of the city and some of the beautiful jacaranda trees, or every single tree that you see there that is purple, that is part of the jacaranda trees here in Pretoria. The big building that you see in front of you over there, complex of buildings, that is the University of Pretoria, one of the universities that we have here here in Pretoria. Right, once again we're here at the top of the Klapperkop Nature Reserve, again panning over Pretoria. You can see all the beautiful jacaranda trees that form part of the city of purple. Panning east to west now. So as you can see, Pretoria is built in a series of valleys, and that tends to keep the heat in a bit. That gives us part of our great weather that we have here in Pretoria. If I have to pan right there across the hill, just zoom in a bit for you. Up against the hill there, you'll be able to see the Union buildings. Another one of the stops we'll be making to come over the Pretoria from another angle. So zooming across now to one of the microwave towers, and just behind that you can see the main city center here in Pretoria. Once again, we're still here in the reserve, this time looking south towards Johannesburg. This is a small game reserve that has some wildlife here as well that we can see. I'm going to zoom in here on our famous zebras that we have.
Fugitives, hooded eyes and weary brows, seek refuge in the night. They are the scatterings of Africa.
Alright, so these are the Jacaranda flowers that you see in front of you at the moment. Imported from Argentina, the trees, back in the 1880s, and is one of 49 different species found here throughout the Jacaranda family. The name Jacaranda means fragrant. However, if you actually smell it, there's not much of a smell that comes from it at all. Jacarandas can grow from shrubs to large trees, 20 to 30 meters tall, which is approximately 65 feet to 100 feet tall. The trees thrive in full sun and sandy soils, but can also survive in colder climates down to approximately -7 degrees Celsius or 19 degrees Fahrenheit. It just means that they won't bloom as often, and the jacarandas only bloom once a year. Some jacarandas are important and imported as timber because of its exceptionally long bole. Some of the Brazilian jacarandas are used to make acoustic guitars. So I'm going to just take you in a little bit now to the actual jacaranda leaf itself and give you a close-up of the jacaranda leaf.
So affect our lives. Oh, see, yes, I'm coming. Oh, see, yes, I'll be coming. So figure where my mind on mine. You know the tide is turning. Oh, see, yes, oh, see, yes, you know the tide is turning. Make my crossing.
Right, so we're here now at the Union buildings up here in Pretoria, named after the Union of South Africa back in 1910. This building took approximately 3 years to build. The architect is Sir Herbert Baker. Started in 1910 and finished in 1913, which was at the time the largest building in South Africa. It has an east wing, a west wing, and an amphitheatre. And the whole idea of this building was to unite the divided people in South Africa. So you have two halves which are exactly the same. And at the time it was the British and the Afrikaners. It is made of sandstone in the monumental style and approximately or exactly 285 meters long. Built on the farm called Elandsfontein, which is Monkey's Kop. It is the official office of the Prime Minister and also part of the International Relations Department. If you look at the actual design of the building, if you look at the windows, you'll see they use the shuttered windows to give it a sense of height. The significant historical events that happened over here was in 1956, a march by approximately 20,000 women against the pass laws, and then on the 10th of May 1994 in the inauguration of President Nelson Mandela, who became South Africa's first democratically elected president. If we swing you around now to show you the actually Pretoria area. Right, so as you can see, Pretoria has been built in a series of valleys, and this is one of the valleys here in Pretoria, and it's one of the reasons why we tend to keep the heat in here in Pretoria. If you look at Johannesburg as well, Johannesburg is the same altitude as Pretoria, but is normally 2 to 3 degrees colder than Pretoria, because in Pretoria it's built in valleys and it tends to keep the heat in. Alright, we've gone through the main city centre here in Pretoria, and if we have a look and see the big black building that you see, the tall black building there in the background, that is the South African Reserve Bank. That is where South Africa keeps all its gold reserves. So we'll just pan you around over here, and you can actually have a glimpse of Pretoria and see Pretoria from the Union buildings. These gardens that you see are totally indigenous gardens. All the plants here in the gardens are indigenous plants. If you swing it completely around and take you up slightly, you'll be able to see the statue of Castor and Pollux, which is brotherhood and union. And it's also the national memorial for the South African soldiers that fell at Dalwell Wood during the First World War between 1914 and 1918. If you look carefully, you'll also be able to see all the various jacarandas, all the trees. And in the bottom of the gardens, there's also the statue of Nelson Mandela, which we'll go and visit. So what is the importance of the Union buildings in Pretoria? The importance is that it's like an ancient temple adorning over the city it governs. It's a modern day acropolis built on the highest point of South Africa's capital city. It forms the official seat of the South African government and also houses the presidency. Once again, there is the beautiful Union buildings, the seat or the home of the president's office, that is, not his actual home, the home of the president's office. Made from sandstone, approximately 3 years to build this, back in between 1910 and 1913. Alright, so welcome to the Union buildings once again, and we're here just down a few stairs of the Union buildings, and we have a wonderful statue of Nelson Mandela. It's approximately 9 meters high, and a tribute to Nelson Mandela, who was the first democratically elected president here in South Africa back on the 27th of April 1994. And in the background you can actually see the beautiful Union buildings that we've been speaking about. We're here in the suburb of Groenkloof in Pretoria, and on Herbert Baker Street. It's the only street in Pretoria that has the white jacarandas. This is a different species of jacarandas from the normal purple ones that we see. As we said earlier, there's approximately 49 different species of jacarandas, and this is white. These trees come from, not from Argentina, but from Chile in South America. And on this road they planted approximately 100 of these white jacarandas. So we have this unique situation where we have these 100 white jacaranda trees that are blooming at the same time as the actual purple jacaranda. So instead of only becoming the city of purple, we are the city of purple with a little bit of white. This is also just a little bit further up the road here in Herbert Baker Street, where we have some of the white jacarandas, but we have quite a unique situation, and it's the only situation here in Pretoria where you actually have a white jacaranda that is next to one of the purple jacarandas.
Good morning and welcome to Pretoria Boys High School. Pretoria Boys High is one of the oldest and most historic schools in the city. The school was originally established in 1901 in the center of the city. The Staats Model School building, which still stands and which is still owned by the Education Department, was where the school was originally founded during the Anglo-Boer War, and Mr. Charles Hope was brought in from the Cape as the first headmaster. The school buildings opened in 1909, as I said, have been modified slightly over the years. Not too many years after moving to this property, the First World War broke out, and South Africa fought in that war, and a number of our staff and our past pupils fought in the war. And in the 1920s, after the conclusion of the First World War, one of the things that was added to the facade of the building was a war memorial. Another change that came about in the 1950s was a result of a disastrous fire in the upper cupola of the main dome. The fire brigade was called out, they pumped thousands of litres of water, and they saved the rest of the dome, although the library, which was just below it, which is today our staff common room, was in fact then quite badly damaged by the fire brigade water. As a result of that, for the next few years, the uppermost part of the dome was actually blanked off, and there was just a rather ugly flat roof placed at the top of the dome, and the uppermost section, of course, had all been destroyed in that fire. And then in the early 1950s, the Public Works Department, under a Mr. Penzorn, rebuilt that. They rebuilt it as a replica based on the original plans, and it was at that point that a very famous art master by the name of Walter Battus decided to in fact place a statue, and the statue that was carved by a group of schoolboys under the supervision of Walter Battus, and the boy who posed for it was a boy called Danny Swart, and Danny Swart then gave his name to that. So the statue that you see at the uppermost part of the dome is referred to by the boys to this day as Danny. It was originally a wooden statue until the 1990s, when it needed to be replaced because dry rot had set in. And it was at that point that a bronze replica was cast, also by an old boy of the school, a well-known sculptor by the name of Guy du Toit, and he produced the replica in bronze, which then replaced the wooden version. We still have the original Danny Swart statue in our school museum, which is part of our main buildings. And so that is preserved for posterity. The symbolism of Danny is very, very important. in that the little boy carries in one arm a book and in the other arm a rugby ball. And this symbolizes one of the core values of Pretoria Boys High, namely the ideal of producing a well-balanced young gentleman. And we pride ourselves on offering a very well-rounded, holistic education in which we place huge emphasis on the academic, sporting, and cultural aspects of this school.
So we're currently here in the school museum at the moment, and this is the original Danny Swart statue that used to be on top of the school, the wooden statue that over the years has been replaced. So here at Pretoria Boys High School we have what we call Jacaranda Drive, and this is the drive that you see here in front of you. Just another view of the Jacaranda Drive and the beautiful jacaranda trees here in Pretoria Boys High School. I'm just going to pan over a little bit here to the right hand side to give you an idea of some of the sports grounds that we have here at the school. So these are some of the rugby fields with the main rugby pavilion that you can see in front of you there. We're currently here in the school grounds, famous Jacaranda Drive, which I'll show you a little bit more, just to give you some of the idea of some of the school facilities here. So here we have the basketball courts as well as some of the cricket nets that you can see, and also the beautiful jacaranda trees that actually make up part of the school and part of the history of the school. We're now just outside the facade of the school, looking down towards the sports grounds. You can see the beautiful jacaranda trees that are over Jacaranda Drive, which we'll go and have a look at in a few moments. And in the background you can see the famous old stadium called Loftus Versfeld, the big rugby stadium that we have here in Pretoria. So as you can see, there are two swimming pools over here. The one swimming pool, the main swimming pool used for mainstream activities, and we also have a water polo swimming pool here at Pretoria Boys High Specific. Once again, we're back at the front of the school again. The school buildings that you can see were originally designed in the English classical, what they call revival tradition, that's strongly associated with the famous architect Herbert Baker and the architectural school, or architects of the Baker School. Over the years, the school has taken great care of its architectural heritage and also trying very strongly to preserve the school traditions. I just want to talk about some of the alumni that have come out of this school. We've had from the school 2 Nobel Prize laureates, 8 judges of the Supreme Court of Appeal of South Africa, which is South Africa's highest court, several government ministers and members of parliament, a lot of prominent intellectuals and high-ranking sportsmen, including Mr. John Smith, who was the World Cup winning rugby captain of the 2007 Springboks when they won that famous victory in France. But probably the most famous of our alumni here at Pretoria Boys High School is a gentleman that everybody knows around the world. His name, Elon Musk. Elon Musk of PayPal, SpaceX, Tesla, the multi-billionaire that got the USA back into the space race. Everybody knows his name, and he also came here to Pretoria Boys High School and is one of the alumni of the school. Right, once again we're in the beautiful suburbs here of Brooklyn, and an excellent example of the 70,000 jacaranda trees that are here on the in the suburbs.
Oh, the sea is cold and the sky is gray. Look across the island into the bay. We are all islands till comes the day we cross the burning water. Hasing Bonanga, Bonangu Mandela China, La Pekuna. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Say you don't know me, I recognize my face. Say you don't care who goes to that kind of place. Knee deep in the hoopla, sinking in your fight. Too many run away.
In the film A Gentleman Prefer Blondes, Marilyn Monroe said that diamonds are a girl's best friend. The great French actress Zaza Gabor said that diamonds are a girl's best friend, but dogs are a man's best friend. So now we know who has got more sense. This was a movie 60 years ago, and today, 60 years later, nothing has changed. Diamonds are still a girl's best friends. I'm outside the mine here in Cullinan today. As you can see down the bottom is where the mine is. It is the world's largest and best gem quality diamonds producer. It produces 25% of the world's gem quality diamonds. When I say gem quality diamonds, I mean these are the type of diamonds that you put on a lady's fingers. That is the type of diamond that Zaza Gabor and Marilyn Monroe referred to. Not only is this actually quite a prolific mine, it is the only source of a very rare diamond called the blue diamond that you can find, and it comes from this mine, Cullinan, just outside Pretoria, approximately 25 miles from Pretoria, or 40 kilometers. In 1903, Thomas Cullinan, who the mine was named after, on the mine, Frederick Wells was the mine superintendent, and he was walking around and he saw this big diamond on the in the actual mine itself, took out his penknife, and from that he got the Cullinan diamond. This was the world's biggest diamond, 3,106 carats, the size of my fist. And this diamond, they then took it through to England, try and sell it in England. Because of its immense value, they couldn't find a buyer for it. And just to get it there was another story. So what they did was they hired this passage on the steamboat, and they ceremoniously put a package in the captain's safe, locked it in the captain's safe, and stood guard for its entire journey. But little did they know that that was actually just a diversionary tactic, because the real diamond was sent by registered post in a plain box to England. The Louis Botha, the then Prime Minister of the Transvaal, said, well, why don't we buy this diamond and give it to the King of England, King Edward VII. It had to go to Parliament. By 42 votes to 19 they approved it, and so the Transvaal government then bought the diamond for a princely sum of £150,000 and gave it to the King of England. And I quote, as a token of the loyalty and attachment of the people of Transvaal to His Majesty's throne and person, unquote. The then Prime Minister of England, Prime Minister Bannerman, wasn't too happy about this, and actually advised the King not to accept this gift. But how can you not accept such a wonderful gift? So the diamond was presented to the King Edward II on his 66th birthday, and it was in the presence of the Queen of Spain, as well as the Queen of Norway and the Duke of Westminster. And I'm sure that all of them were wishing that this diamond would be theirs, and they'd be actually getting such a wonderful gift. So what did the King do with the diamond? He actually took it and he cut it up into 2 big diamonds and a lot of smaller diamonds. The big diamond, 530 carats, called the Greater Star of Africa, and the little diamond called the Lesser Star of Africa, a mere 317 carats. So today, if you see the Queen walking around with her scepter and with her crown, you'll see that the big diamond is in a scepter and the smaller diamond of 317 carats is in her crown. The diamond was the size of my fist, 3,105 carats. What would that diamond go for today? They estimate a mere $2 billion for that diamond. Since then, Cullinan Diamond Mine hasn't actually been sitting on its laurels. It's produced a lot of other wonderful diamonds over the years. Some of them, 101 carats, sold for $6.2 million. That was in 2009. Another one for 507 carats, sold for $35.5 million. A blue diamond for 25.5 carats was sold for $10 million recently as well. And approximately, not even a month ago, around about the middle of October, they produced over a week another 4 brilliant diamonds ranging from 5 carats to 25 carats. The Cullinan Diamond Mine was called the Premier Mine up until 2007 in its centenary year. 2003. 2007, the diamond mine was sold to a company called Petra Diamonds, owned by a Greek chap, Mr. Peroulis. Petra is the Greek word for stone, and the word diamond comes from the Greek word adamas, which means unconquerable. So that was called the Premier Diamond Mine up until 2003, when the owners of the diamond mine, in its centenary year, Anglo-America, then decided to change its name to the Cullinan Diamond Mine. And then from there, in 2007, was bought by a consortium called Petra Diamonds, owned by a Greek family called the Peroulis family here in Johannesburg. So what you see behind me is the source of the world's premier diamonds. And as I said, 25% of the world's gem quality diamonds come from this diamond mine. And Marilyn Monroe and Zaza Gabor were always correct. Diamonds are still a girl's best friend.
Doers. But I prefer a man who lives and gives expensive jewels. A kiss on the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. A kiss may be grand, but it won't pay the rental on your humble flat, or help you at the automat. Men grow cold as girls grow old, and we all lose our charms in the end.
A seagull wings across the sea.
So this is the problem that you have here now with some of the jacarandas. Although they're beautiful trees, they actually leave a lot of mess on the floor, and here we have a gentleman that's busy actually clearing them now. And the street we're going down now is called Haloma Street, pretty near the Pretoria Country Club. Welcome to the Hellenic community of Pretoria. This is the Greek Orthodox Church here in Pretoria. This is the only church that we do have, only Greek church that we do have in Pretoria. Some other communities like Johannesburg, who are a little bit bigger than us, have 3 or 4 churches. But here in Pretoria, this is the only church that we have, and the only Greek community that we have. This is one of the features here in Pretoria, this great Greek Orthodox church. So what we'll do also is we'll go inside the church and have a look at some of the icons that are in the church itself.
My name is Dimitra Eftikas. I'm a member of the congregation of the Greek Orthodox Church in Pretoria. The church is named the Church of the Annunciation of the Angel Gabriel to Mary. This here is the icon of the Anastasis, which means the resurrection. It is the most important event in the life of Christ because having been down to Hades after 3 days and having battled with Satan, he broke the doors of Satan, of hell. As you can see, all the keys are flowing all over, and he tied Satan. And it was by means of the cross, whose shape you can see in that depth, in that black depth down there. And then he rose up, and as he rises up, he brings up Adam and Eve, who represent the whole of humanity. This represents the eternity of the human spirit, because these 2 characters lived 2,000 years ago, and yet here they are fully present. The light is so blinding that the 3 apostles can't look at it. The dome of the church represents heaven, and the head of heaven is Christ, or Pandokrator, which means the Almighty One. And then we have heaven, in which all the angels are represented here as the seraphim, the Archangel Gabriel and Michael, all the angels. But in that sphere, we also have St. John the Baptist and Mary, the Mother of God. And then further down, we have the realm of all the saints and the martyrs who gave up their life for Christ. And during the liturgy, this is the church triumphant, and we, the congregation, together with the church triumphant, pray that we are the church militant who fight in this life to achieve theosis, which means godliness. In our fight against the passions of anger, jealousy, hatred, in order to reach the heavenly state.
Impi, wonansi mpieza, ubani benga chinja mabubesi. Impi, wonansi mpieza, ubani benga chinja mabubesi. simpieza Obane bega tinta mabubesi
So here we are at the moment in the Loftus Versfeld Stadium in Pretoria. This stadium has been named after Robert Loftus Owen Versfeld. He's the founder of organised sports here in Pretoria. The first stadium was built back in 1923 and it had a capacity of only 2,000 people. Over the years it's been grown quite a bit and now has a capacity of around about 51,700, but this site was used for organised sports back in 1906. It is the home of the Blue Bulls rugby franchise, the most successful Super Rugby franchise in South Africa. It has won 3 Super Rugby titles. It's a stadium where I've spent many an afternoon, Saturday afternoon, jumping up and down with joy and also with frustration sometimes as my team was winning or sometimes even losing. In 1995, during the World Cup of Rugby hosted here in South Africa, this stadium also hosted 6 rugby matches, including a quarter-final and the third place playoff, where France beat England 19-9 in front of a 45,000 crowd. In 2009, the British and Irish Lions came to the stadium and played the second test, and it was here that the Springboks clinched the series 28-25. Exciting times back then to have the British and Irish Lions over here, and next year in July they come once again. They tour every 12 years here in South Africa. In 2010, South Africa hosted the FIFA World Cup of Soccer. So this stadium was one of the stadiums that were used for the soccer as well. At the time it was an existing stadium, so it made a lot more sense to just actually improve the stadium instead of building a completely new stadium. So what they did, they improved the floodlights, they put a roof over one of the stands and improved the sound system, the scoreboard and the parking facilities, and became a stadium which hosted 6 games, including the one of the quarterfinals here at the Loftus Rugby Stadium. And the most I was lucky to actually attend 4 of these 6 games that was played over here. And the most exciting one was the USA versus Algeria, where the USA won 1-0. Now, besides also hosting a lot of the rugby games and some of the soccer games over here, it's also the big concert venue for concerts here in Pretoria. It's hosted the UB40, and in 2006 Robbie Williams performed here in front of a 60,000 crowd, and I was fortunate to be one of those people attending this concert. So out of all my abiding memories here at Loftus Stadium, I think the best memories for me were for the 2010 World Cup of Soccer, where many people came from all over the world, and we saw many different games here at Loftus, and it was a great time and all of us just loved it here at the time. So the 2010 FIFA World Cup was a great time for all of us here in South Africa, especially here at Loftus.
All along the river, Chelmsford's army lay asleep. Stephen Biko. Hasimbonanga, bonanga umfowethu thina, laphe khona, la wafela khona. Victoria Mxenge. Hasimbonanga, bonanga utati wethu thina, laphe khona, la wafela khona. Neil Agate. Hasimbonanga. bonanga bonanga umfowethu thina laphe khona la wafela khona awuyithi hey wena nawe sofika nini la siyakhona